We're at the Foxconn factory now in Chengdu in western China. It has 160,000 workers, and its most famous product is the Apple iPad. The Foxconn factory here did not allow us to come in, much less roam around freely. The 5 people we initially spoke to at Foxconn were pre-screened by the factory, and we had to interview them in a building just outside the factory gate. There we met Ms. Pugh, who told us that she has received 2 raises this year, and she has seen a change in corporate culture that began in February and March. Ms. Pugh told us about improved safety conditions, and she told us how the plastic stool on which she used to sit all day had been replaced with a chair with a very low back, and then with a second chair with a full height back that actually provided some support.
I used to sit with my back straight all the time. When there weren't many things to do, I could not lean back or rest. But now I can. Yes, there have been changes this year. There are lots of training programs aimed at improving workers' professional skills and work ethic.
Ms. Pugh then offered to show us her dormitory. 6 people live in a single dorm room. We noticed the balcony door and the window were both jammed wide open when we visited Ms. Pugh's room, and nobody had been able to push them closed. You can't make 160,000 people happy all the time, perhaps even most of the time. But the question is whether you can treat them with a standard of decency that would meet an impartial outside observer's sense of what's right. Despite our best efforts, the company would not let us into the factory even to see Ms. Pugh's new chair. So we left the factory and dorms and discreetly returned after nightfall to an area of eateries near the dorms. We wanted to meet people without being visibly shadowed by company minders and government security personnel. In the course of reporting this story, my colleagues and I spoke with more than 70 Foxconn employees, one at a time, in Chengdu over the course of a month, to get a sense of what has changed.
Foxconn is more humane than other companies in terms of company culture or the cafeteria and so on. It is more disciplined and stable. It doesn't matter if it is the annual leave or Lunar New Year, there is always welfare for the employees. As an ex-soldier and employee at Foxconn, Foxconn is just like home to me.
Yet many workers, particularly young men and women in their late teens who grew up as only children because of China's one-child policy, do not want to live under quasi-military discipline. Several workers told us of obscenity-laden harangues by factory foremen at Foxconn when they made mistakes or did not work quickly enough. 2 women told of a friend who had returned in tears to her dormitory and even briefly thought of suicide. They refused to go on camera. Such stories were the exception, however, not the rule. But they show that the Foxconn factory in Chengdu can still be a tough place to work at times. One of the biggest changes this year has been that these factories are limiting the number of hours people are allowed to work. That has reduced overtime pay. But the factories have been raising basic pay. So workers keep overall compensation roughly the same and have more free time. The picture that emerges is one of a company that is making some changes, particularly material changes, but the corporate culture has changed much less. For the Apple iPads, are they being produced yet by workers under conditions that many Americans or Europeans would choose for themselves? Probably not. Are they being produced under conditions that are much better than those 10 years ago in China? Yes. And are, compared to a year ago, a little better. But it's still undergoing change. With Apple and HP contractors employing hundreds of thousands of people across China, the changes that they carry out here could become an example for manufacturers across China. For the New York Times, this is Keith Bradsher in Western China.